I mean, I was first out on slicks in the wet in the beginning of the qualifying, so it was very difficult. Just had to warm up the tires and see what the car can do. I mean, I'm very happy with today. Lots of points. I mean, he taught me a lot of stuff.
Quite a challenging qualifying session with it, fairly damp, and it didn't dry out as I hoped. So my best times came towards the last, 4 to 5 minutes. I think the time screen showed that I was in second place, but I think for race 1 I might actually be on pole. It'll depend on where the second driver in the team came. So yeah, on the whole, happy with qualifying. But yeah, hopefully dry races later on.
Plenty to ponder for everybody, not just Steve Burgess, at the conclusion of the opening qualifying period of the season. Lots of last-minute tweaks to ponder ahead of the first race. Well, fortunately, Steve got his wish and it stayed dry as he lined up in pole position alongside Brian Murphy on the front row. The red lights came on, the anticipation started to rise. Long hold on the centre straight, and away they went, with the exception of Jack Lang and Jack Manchester, both of whom got bogged down. Lang eventually got away midfield. Manchester, he dropped right towards the back of the field. This is almost 3 wide into the opening turn, with Brian Caldwell looking to swoop around the outside at Riches. Everybody else was cleanly through, having somehow avoided contact with those slow starters at the front of the field. Track conditions vastly improved from qualifying, but still very chilly March afternoon, and therefore taking a little bit of time to warm up the tyres. Out front it's Brian Caldwell who got the advantage over Steve Burgess, and then Brian Murphy, who had slipped down into third place. But of course, with 20 minutes of racing ahead, there was a long way to go. The SR1s as well mixing up at the front of the field as Caldwell headed on to the back straight for the first time down the Bentley straight, with Steve Burgess in close pursuit. Jack Manchester, meanwhile, picking his way on from the back of the field. Gary Patterson, next target he was looking to encounter. Race leaders streaked through. Thrilling start to the year as Burgess was looking every which way to try and clear Brian Caldwell. Eventually into Riches, he found space to the inside. Caldwell left in the room, and through went Burgess on towards the Montreal hairpin. The question, of course, was whether or not Burgess could make good his escape. Meanwhile, John McLeod slithering wide the Montreal hairpin, allowing Tony Wells up into 4th place in the black number 3 car. Wells, who's been a very successful competitor in Radicals over recent seasons. Another driver who was just slipping a little bit wide was Brian Harvey. Sylvain Guintoli got to grips with his 4-wheel circuit racing debut. Guintoli showing very strongly towards the front of the field. Busy hustling in the early stages, Paul Allen. Burgess did pull the pin and move clear of Brian Caldwell, and Caldwell consulting his mirrors as it was then the turn of Tony Wells to look to challenge into Riches. Wells able to ease through and then close the door en route to the Montreal hairpin. All the while, of course, Brian Murphy in the mix, and Murphy able to just jink to the inside of Caldwell, flinging the SR3 sideways. Caldwell looking to fight back, doing an excellent job of keeping Murphy at bay. Brian Murphy, always one of the most spectacular competitors in radical racing. Meanwhile, scary moment, rotating around Mark Richards in the path of oncoming traffic. Fortunately, everybody was able to avoid him. It's Tony Wells and Brian Caldwell ran in tandem, but as they battled, it just enabled Steve Burgess to ease away. It was Burgess who claimed the first victory of the season. Dominantly so, almost 12 seconds clear of his rivals. So the applause of the teams on the pit wall. Tony Wells finishing in 2nd place. Brian Caldwell completing the podium. Andy Chissenden, the first of the Radical SR1s home.
Got a good start. I thought I'd done Brian Murphy next to me on the grid, but then Brian Caldwell sort of snuck round on the outside of me around turn 1. Sort of followed him for the first lap, had a good go at him around Coram, and he closed the door on me, so managed to get him on the finish straight. After that, it was fairly straight plain sailing. Had a bit of an incident occurring in Coram, going past the back mark and ended up doing a bit of grass tracking, but apart from that, it was a good race.
The weather, unfortunately for race 2, predictably spring-like, with a heavy shower just before the start, dousing the circuit and making for very tricky conditions. Starting from pole position, it was Bradley Smith. Alongside him, Steve Burgess. And Smith bogging down a little bit off the line was once more. It was an excellent getaway from Brian Murphy. As the field cleanly away and surging towards Richards, but it's Burgess who got the advantage from Smith. Murphy, and another fast start from Brian Caldwell, who's really mastered the getaway. There's 3 wide in the midfield, not leaving an awful lot of space. They all somehow managed to make it through. Meanwhile, Bradley Smith was immediately into pressure mode, forcing the mistake from Burgess. Montreal hairpin, Burgess running wide, leaving the SR3's width to the inside. There's almost contact there for Brian Caldwell, but now for Bradley Smith, the question was, could he break clear of the rest of them? Tony Wells was looking to pick his way up the order, and the same for Sylvain Guintoli. Rather less enjoyable for Guintoli was that spin, clattering into the Armco barrier. The Frenchman fortunately okay. The same couldn't be said for his front bodywork. In fact, Guintoli hopping out shows the strength and durability of the Radical SR3 RSX. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, we were being treated to a battle royal between Steve Burgess and Bradley Smith, the pair of them trading places around the tight, twisty confines of the Snetterton 300 circuit. Both Burgess and Smith, no strangers to running at the front of the field, and therefore they knew exactly how to start applying the pressure. The other factor, of course, was the fact the track was drying out, and therefore the grip levels changing on each and every lap as they got in amongst the traffic. That begun to offer up a little bit of an opening for Smith to try and find a way past Burgess. Bradley Smith looking every which way, but as you can see, that dry line as it emerged meant it was very difficult for Smith to find a way through. So as soon as you go offline, that's onto the slippery stuff. Smith trying on the last corner into Murray's, resulting in contact, tipping Burgess around. A quick spin for Steve Burgess. Smith going for the move. The gap wasn't quite there, but it worked out for him, and it was Bradley Smith who accelerated through, took the checkered flag, and victory in the second of the sprint races. A bittersweet win for Bradley Smith, not how he would have wanted to do it, with across the line Burgess in second place, Jack Lang completing the podium several seconds back.
And I knew it was drying up, so I kind of went to the inside, and I was there, and I'm like, oh shit, he's coming in. I tried to get up the curve as much as I could, but you know, you're mega.
All smiles from Smith and Burgess. However, the clerk of the course was of the opinion that move wasn't really on, and therefore Bradley Smith was retrospectively handed an 8-second time penalty. It gave victory to Steve Burgess from Smith. Jack Lang keeping that third place. On to the longer race of the weekend, the 40-minute mandatory pit stop race. This is where strategy starts to come into play, with the pit window opening for 8 minutes once we are 12 minutes in. Promises to be absolutely spectacular as we get ready for the start. Steve Burgess on pole from Brian Caldwell, waiting for the red lights to turn out, and away they go. It's a good start from fourth from Tony Wells as the field sprint towards Richards for the first time. Still a very slippery circuit as it's Burgess who leads into Richards. Tony Wells, having made that getaway, was somewhat boxed in, and therefore he's tucked up behind Jack Lang, or was a little bit of contact. Lang goes sideways. Fortunately, everybody misses him as the race leaders hurtle towards Montreal for the first time, with them looking to pick out the grip. Very tricky it is to do with the sun just beginning to dip in the sky. It's Jack Manchester looking to elevate himself up through the field, with Aaron Bailey tucked up just behind him in car 11 as they turn into Palmer, then along the straight towards the left-hand hairpin at Agostini, and don't the cars make a magnificent sight. Radical SR3 RSX, truly beautiful piece of racing machinery. Also been a very good start from Mark Richards. Richards running up in second place in these early stages as Steve Burgess looking to try and make it a clean sweep for the weekend and break away from Richards and Brian Caldwell tucked up just behind him. And then we've also got James Abbott before he hands over to Sylvain Guintoli. Meanwhile, it's worth watching for the progress of the number 4 car. Trev wheel at the moment, but when he hands over to Smith, then that car will start to climb up through the pack. Headlights ablaze then from Burgess across the line, with Richards in very close pursuit, and then we've got James Abbott, who is next along, car number 50, new nose cone of course, after that incident for Guintoli in race 2. Abbott fighting very hard in these early stages. That leading quartet completed by Brian Caldwell easing away from the rest of the field. Oh, that's a robust move from Caldwell to the inside of Abbott into the Montreal hairpin. Nothing malicious in it. The gap was there. The grip possibly wasn't. Great reflexes from James Abbott to make sure that there was racing room. And while there is Elliot Goodman, the driver who's been spectacular in Radical Racing for several seasons. He is running a little bit more in the midfield. Meanwhile, Brian Caldwell has really got a wiggle on. He is off in pursuit of Mark Richards. Richards, the black car with the silver striping. While, of course, Burgess clear at the front of the pack. James Abbott there in fourth, and that is a good run from Brian Caldwell. See in due course whether or not it has worked out for him. Mark Crader, he heads on to the Bentley straight. Crader running just towards the bottom end of the top 10. It's across the line once more. Steve Burgess. And then you can see Richards withstood the pressure from Caldwell. In fact, now Brian Caldwell under pressure from James Abbott. But there's just that solitary dry line through Riches, which is claimed by Caldwell. It means there's no space for Abbott to look to probe. He might have a little bit of a look into the Montreal hairpin. Can he do it? No, he can't. Brian Caldwell right to the inside line. It's actually that heavy braking zone for Montreal where Brian Caldwell's so strong means he's immediately onto terms with Mark Richards as well as they swing through Palmer. Some great battles as ever throughout the field. That is the beauty of Radical Racing. Wherever you look, there's always a close battle on the go. That's a super move from Brian Caldwell. He's really confident breaking into those slower corners. He slithers wide of Agostini. It gives Richards a chance to fight back. They go elbow to elbow coming out of Agostini. I think Richards is going to have the inside line for Hamilton, but he backs out of it and Caldwell goes through up into second place. Great stuff. And then there's a gap as well into Oggies, and sliding through is James Abbott. He takes third in the blink of an eye. Two corners. Mark Richards slips from second to fourth as they accelerate out of Williams on to the Bentley straight. Across the line again, and now James Abbott is up with Brian Caldwell, looking to challenge again into Richards. This time the dry line is just widening, isn't it? And that is what is giving Abbott the hope that he might be able to sneak through. But then we get into the heavy braking zone at Montreal. That is where Brian Caldwell is so good. Although on that occasion, Caldwell doesn't quite claim the apex. They come out, corner on towards Palmer. Swinging through the left-hander. Meanwhile, there is Jack Manchester. He is off in pursuit of the Tyler car just behind them as well. They have got Jason Rishover. Meanwhile, James Abbott has found a way past Brian Caldwell. It was maybe a little bit too much to ask of Brian to withstand that level of pressure from James for too long. The pit window is open, and this is when the race really starts to get turned on its head. You just saw heading through the pits then Jason Redding about to rejoin the action. Also in, we have got James Holder in his SR3, Gary Ramsdale and Sean Mellors switching seats as well. Also a change around as Tom Gladys about to jump into the wheel of number 80 car that he takes over from Peter Tyler. We can expect to see that one going very well with Tom, former FIA Formula 2 Championship racer, Joe and Richard Stables, for positions, as well as into the pit lane comes our race leader Steve Burgess. Now Burgess will be hoping for a nice and secure pit stop here as others rejoin the fray. Now this is very tricky for the drivers just competing in the second half of the race, because as you can see, the track is very slippery. It's getting pretty chilly as well. Steve Burgess rejoins the action. He'll be hoping the heat hasn't come out of his tyres too much. It was a fairly comfortable advantage for Steve before the pit stops, and he'll be hoping that that continues to grow afterwards. I suspect he'll be aided here somewhat by the fact that his principal rival, James Abbott, is handing over to Sylvain Guintoli. Brian Murphy, also another driver, back into the action. Well, there is James Abbott. He is staying out a little bit later in the pit window, as was to be expected, and he will be trying to take advantage of some clear air. There is Sylvain Guintoli, taking a little bit of advice from Phil Abbott. Be it 2 or 4 wheels, the focus never changes as the Radical team get to work in the pits. James Abbott jumps out. Guintoli straight into the cockpit. Should add, by the way, that those fluorescent yellow caps aren't a fashion statement. In fact, it is both a safety measure so that those working on the cars are clearly visible, but also an easy way for the scrutineers to make sure that the appropriate number of mechanics are working on the car at any given point. So Sylvain Guintoli rejoins the race. Now his exam question is, can he close down the gap to Steve Burgess? In fact, what a stint from James Abbott. He sends Guintoli out in the lead, but only for a corner, because now we've got Steve Burgess back ahead of Sylvain Guintoli. And can Guintoli stay with him, getting himself up to speed, and then look to challenge? Meanwhile, here is the fight for third place. Brian Caldwell and Mark Richards doing battle. They have got Tony Wells up the road just ahead of them as well. Meanwhile, for Steve Burgess, this is proving to be an excellent weekend's work. And what is the deficit to Guintoli like? The timing screen suggests it's growing. Indeed it is, because there is Sylvain Guintoli, and he has got Caldwell and Richards closing up onto his tail very rapidly. And there's Tony Wells, who's off onto the grass as the sun really beginning to dip now. What a fantastic fight we've got for second place as Caldwell turns through Richards. He's got Guintoli in his sights. Mark Richards is there in third. He'll be looking to pick up any pieces if it all to go a little bit wrong. As Caldwell again taking that very deep route on the brakes into the Montreal hairpin. It doesn't work for him. Guintoli somewhat unflappable, sticking to the racing line, making all the others do the hard work. Meanwhile, Bradley Smith has got John McLeod just behind him. So Gary Patterson in amongst with that group as we return once more to the fight for second place. Of course, Steve Burgess has checked out at the front of the field as Caldwell looks to challenge. This could open the door here for Mark Richards. Brian Caldwell, the red 66 car, he cannot overcommit to a manoeuvre, because if he does, it may leave a Radicals width as they pile their way past one of the SR1s. Down the Bentley straight we go into the last lap of the race, and this is when it's all going to really start to come to a head as they fling their way into Rich's. Guintoli driving superbly well to withstand the pressure, and now Caldwell taking the inside line into the Montreal hairpin. Is he going to slither out wide? No, he doesn't. They head around Montreal on towards Palmer. Richards is still busy filling Caldwell's mirrors here. Through the left-hander at Palmer, on towards Agostini. Meanwhile, there is Matthew George, who is the foremost of the SR1s. Guintoli and Caldwell looking to battle coming out of Agostini. Brian Caldwell to the inside line at Hamilton. Now that may catch him out, because it's very tight as you go to the inside there. And he leaves the door open at Oggies, and Richards goes for the move. Mark Richards darts to the inside. Fantastic move there from Mark Richards. Now, can he shut the door on Caldwell into Williams? Yes, he can. And Brian Caldwell has only got half a lap remaining to try and claw back that third place, but he takes a poor run onto the Bentley straight. Steve Burgess takes an emphatic victory. Super drive from Steve with a dominant margin of victory, some 20-odd seconds, as Guintoli does hold on for second place. He and James Abbott in second, and Mark Richards completes the podium after that dramatic last lap move on Brian Caldwell. Brilliant racing from the Radical Challenge Championship. All three races this weekend have been spectacular, but they really did save the best until last. Absolutely magnificent dicing around the Snetterton 300 circuit. Handshake from Phil Abbott, Sylvain Guintoli. Guintoli will be overjoyed with that as Steve Burgess adds to his collection of Snetterton winners' caps. Guintoli shake hands and celebrate second place, and it was a super drive as well from Mark Richards to claim a very strong third. So on to the rostrum for the final race of the weekend. The top SR1 was Matthew George, third place Mark Richards, second place James Abbott and Sylvain Guintoli, and once more triumphant at Snetterton, Steve Burgess. Time to enjoy the champagne at the end of an excellent weekend's racing.
Perfect start to the season. You know, I got a good start on that one into clear air and just got some good rhythm going and pulled a good lead out. Yeah, and it was fairly easy from there, to be honest.
Of course, track conditions were ever changing, got quicker towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, on the back straight, it was still quite damp, and under the bridge, it was especially wet, so you had to show a bit of caution for the first 20 minutes. But yeah, the last 20 minutes it was bone dry, so you could go flat out.
Tried to keep my nose clean, had a bit of a battle, so yeah, came through in second, set it up, and there we go, just like that.
And you had Sylvain Guintoli as your teammate for that race, so he did a cracking job to take the checker flag.
Yeah, brilliant. First weekend of the car, jumping in after having a crash, so yeah, sure it's probably one of your most emotional podiums you've had of your career, you know. So brilliant.
And Sylvain Guintoli, a really good job, of course. We're used to seeing you on 2 wheels. 4 wheels for a change. How did you feel out there?
Well, it felt like a fantastic new experience for me, and driving here with the part of the Radical team was you know, a fantastic opportunity to have fun and learn something completely new for me. I never raced on 4 wheels, never mind about you know, some properly fast little downforce car, which do some great lap times. So you know, it was hard to learn, and we've done a good job, and the Radical team has looked after me really well. So I'm very happy, and finishing on, you know, we've done it all today. We've done a good race, a good first race, then crashing second race, and then the podium to finish. It's been a great day.
The sun sets on what has been an excellent day's racing to open the Radical Challenge Championship. Some brilliant racing throughout the field, and we very much look forward to you joining us for the next event of the season, Brands Hatch, on the 14th of May.